saying things that threaten the system of white supremacy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr. You got something, brother?
I would like to ask the doctor, could he, um, because we talk about racism and white supremacy. Um, could he define white supremacy for us?
Oh yeah. Well, there's a
Define it
lengthy
with industrial though. Could you do
you know
that?
Say
what?
what?
Defined white supremacy, but with the industrial complexity of things, or how things is industrial. Industrial.
Well, Francis Cress Welsing gives the best definition of white supremacy, but that definition, is very long. Um, but what she argues is that white supremacy is that a minority group in this world, and she calls them melanin deficient,
Efficient.
feel inferior to that they know that the entire world are people of color, not only black people, but brown people,
Yes, sir.
uh, Asians, and so forth. And what happens is that they feel threatened by their existence because the world is overwhelmingly people of color. So that they have to set up a system to suppress people of color. And that system is what we call white supremacy. See, when we think of white supremacy, we think of a guy in a Ku Klux Klan
Right.
hood or something, or
Yes, sir.
uh, what's this guy that's running for president, Donald Trump? We think of an individual. You got to think of white supremacy as an entire system that operates in those 9 areas that Dr. Welsing talks about. And I see it operating in education, for example.
Yes,
But
sir.
right now they're saying black folk aren't going to learn. We're going to stop teaching black studies all over the
Mm,
country. And
right.
they're doing that. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio right now, my hometown. I came here from Baltimore to watch the eclipse because, ironically, Cleveland is a good place to watch the total eclipse. And in Ohio, they said we're not going to have black studies in K through 12. They're just wiping it out. They've done that in Florida. They
Yes, sir.
just fired the DEI, diversity, what is it? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. A director, uh, that's what it said.
No,
Yeah.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Fired the woman that was head of it at Disney. They just, and I'm interested as an academic at the University of Florida in Gainesville, they wiped out the entire DEI department. So this is how the system works, not the individual, but the system. And as I've said, and people don't like me saying it, and that's why I get in trouble with the government, but, um, I believe that within the system of white supremacy, it's a team sport, and every white person is on the team. Every
Mm,
white person.
mm.
And see, when I say
Absolutely.
that, black people say, well, my cousin married a white person and she's good. Every white person.
It's on their team.
And then, like Marimba says in Yurugu, until black people see all white people as being potential enemies, if not overt enemies, we'll never be fully liberated.
No.
And I
Yes.
know that's a hard thing for
And
people to say and believe because we got black men dating white women, we got black black women dating white men, and everybody knows somebody that's, I don't know, a good white person. So I got a sister friend of mine named, I better not call her name because the FBI might be after her, but she says that when the revolution comes, she said, my job is to kill all liberal white people,
mm.
and
Yes, sir.
because the liberals, you hear what Dr. King said about liberal
Yes, yeah, he
white
did.
people.
He said yes, he did.
And see, people don't see this is a hard thing. And when you say this, that all white people are soldiers in the system of white supremacy and they're on the same team, people say, well, that's hard. That means you hate somebody. I don't hate white people.
No. No.
And you probably seen the video where my ancestor Muhammad Ali said, uh, if like 1,000 snakes were out there in the audience, and one of those snakes was not poisonous, one of them, would you let them in your house?
Right.
Even though one of them was non-poisonous and non-threatening, wouldn't kill you, you wouldn't let those snakes in your
In your
house.
house, no.
You
No,
know,
you wouldn't.
so, and
No,
I
you
know
wouldn't.
that sounds, see, that's black nationalism,
You
people,
got to know the players on the board, sir.
you
You do.
do,
We
You
you
have
got
to.
to know the
do.
players on the board.
And
Well, let me
like
get
the,
in with Jerron.
Yeah.
I want to ask you from your perspective, my brother. Can you define white supremacy from your perspective?
I feel like white supremacy is a judgment state. Let's be honest. What is really its wording is just you having a hierarchy with your own competence and behavior as well too. I mean, you got a mass of elite people acting in a way to subject another mass of a lot of people in one area, and then those two things don't really define on white supremacy to me. It's just hierarchy in the colonial sense. Like you got a whole different type of standard when you talk about colonialism and then industrial. Like what Dr. Winbush just said kind of just matched on me asking the question, can you explain white supremacy with industrial? You see how they took that cognitive submission and put them into acts. It then had all them people just decimated from their area sense. Kind of just remove them from your own thought process. I feel like white supremacy is really a living stance. Like you really press on from a judgment, from your own judgment. And I actually looking at my notes right now, and I said there's a prejudgment due to the fact of most of black indigenous and led on to the American man that there's a mark of real theoretical problems that would think of or oh my bad, hold on. There is a rhetorical problem for most black people and indigenous black people, and they're standing on it in so-called America right now because of their placement and their own placement. I mean, you got half of black Americans that really look like the consumer, which they get called as, and you got most of the people that is generalized, that's elite, literally above them people in the civilization that kind of looks at them from this consumer mindset. It's just that's what the white supremacy gets seen on. You start reflecting on X. You start looking at people's behavior, and then you start subjecting. And then we got that, that heavy hand, that heavy gravel to, make laws or do legislation or proclaim on people and make these type of movements and do these type of acts with the people and shift the people at the same time. It becomes higher than white supremacy. It becomes hierarchy, and it's all plays. That's why we have the constitutional law. And that's why we have most legislations being rewritten out because of white supremacy, so-called hierarchy. That's why there's most buildings out here that have that power to go into a legislation to pull something out and change itself. Hierarchy. It's crazy.
So let me ask you, Duran, and just give me a second. Where do you see black people in this hierarchy? Where do you see yourself placing in this hierarchy that you speak of?
I see us being blinded, truthfully, because I was just having a conversation with a so-called priest, but in the moment he was a spokesman in the church, and he said, "We Americans are the ones that can make this whole thing refundalize, like resource on itself, make a whole recycle, and we can, because we sit on the working class of things. We make sure we have the own power to build land and make land, and yet we don't because of the things that we get told from people above us, or just the so-called look of it. I feel
Okay.
like we just under mass subjection, to be honest with you, because of our own state of matter, or state of conscious too, us going to school. You mentioned the schools and how they changing educational laws, possibly. That's a fact right there. You're not looking at that, and then you kind of just go on with it. You have the power to go into a place and ask for a law to get changed, but most won't get into that thought.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, little brother. Okay.
Mhm.
Dr. Winbush. We don't want to keep you long. But I do have a couple more questions that I want to, or subject matters dealing with the um, the disdain for black men. Um, One of them right now, like I said, we dealt with the thing about the um, uh, um, celebrities being, or success, black men, but I also wanted to deal with the way feminism has pointed its has constantly always had its arrows at black men, but now it seems that it is taking a great hold of our women, and now they're aiming, their arrows at us. What do you see coming from that? How do you see, us being able to reconcile with our women?
That's a whole show in itself.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me summarize it this way: that um, if if I was a white supremacist, I would go after the black man. That's number one. Number two, I would make sure that the relationships between black men and black women are always troubled. I would do anything I could to disrupt those relationships.
Yes, sir.
It's and one way of doing that is to create at the exact same time. I'm the oldest one on this call, I'm sure. Um, in the late 1960s, when black people really, I mean, this is after Dr. King was assassinated and the beginning of the Black Panther Party, you start seeing white women talking about women's liberation. Um, my colleague, what's his name? Tommy, I'll think of his name in a minute. He's written a lot about this called Man Not,
Yes,
KNOT. It's a
sir.
brilliant
I'm
book.
Thomas C. Curry.
Yeah, with Tommy Curry, right.
Yeah,
And
I've just finished it. I mean, I've just reread it.
ain't that a good book?
It's fantastic.
And what he does is doesn't mince words with how the white feminist movement was a way of truncating and diverting attention from the black movement. And so a lot of sisters
Yes, sir.
started calling themselves black feminists. Now, I'm a quote from Alice Walker, who some people don't like because Alice married a white man, and her daughter ain't speaking to her now, and blah blah blah. But she said something that I do believe, and we can glean wisdom from a variety of sources, even though oftentimes that source has its own challenges. And she said that we shouldn't refer to black women as black feminists. She said we
Right.
should talk about them being womanist. And she
Mm-hmm.
said
Mm,
because a
Yes.
black woman cannot just talk about her gender, she has to talk about racism as well. Well, when Alice said that in about 1972 or 73, white feminists got threatened and they took her off. She was on the board of Ms. Magazine. They kicked her off of that and said, we can't, well, I can't identify as a womanist because I'm white. And she said, that's the whole point. So, so Alice got pilloried by the white feminist community for saying that with regards to black women, you have to take into consideration gender and race. White women only take into consideration gender. And the
right.
proof of that, tell me the last time you seen, I'm trying to think, what's the sister brother that was killed by the police down in Texas? You know who I'm talking about
Yeah,
5, 6 years ago.
down
Um,
in Texas.
Mhm.
The sister,
well,
she was in the house with her son,
she was,
and they,
well, that too. There's another good one.
You talking about?
Uh,
Is you talking about Sandra? Is that her name? Is
Sandra
that
Bland. Sandra
Sandra?
okay,
Bland.
Sandra Bland. Okay, okay.
Thank you for that. When's the last time you seen white women when black women are being killed, like Sandra Bland, that they come and demonstrate on their behalf? They don't
Never,
do
They
that.
don't.
and they
They
never
don't.
have.
Right. They never have. Now, black women will go, demonstrate if a white person got killed
Yeah.
unjustly in a minute. But where were the white feminists when George Floyd was killed? You
Right.
know, where were the white women? What's the sister in Kentucky that got shot in the bedroom? She was sleeping with her man. Boy, y'all, I'm
Yeah.
really.
I know her
It
name.
was the same. It was the same year that
George Floyd was
George
right.
Floyd was killed. You didn't see white women running up there saying, you know, we need to stop this violence towards black women. And
You're right.
so white women care about themselves. And as I said before, I wrote that in Warrior Method years ago. White women are the oil, the grease, if you please, of the system and machinery of white supremacy.
Period.
They are
Period.
giving, right. They give birth to these white men who say on January 6th, a couple years ago, we're going to storm the Capitol. You think those white women said, no, don't do that. That's wrong.
Right.
They
No.
they they have brothers that went, fathers who went, husbands who went, uncles, grandparents that went to do that. White women encourage that stuff,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes, sir.
they suckle those white males as babies. They sleep with them and have sons that they raise to be white supremacists.
Nah, can I
So
pretend to you real quick?
yeah,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let the doctor finish, brother.
no, that's all. I'm just saying that. So when a woman says she's a black feminist, well, first of all, black women have always been feminists. They've always been, not, I don't want to say the backbone of our community, but they've been side by side through enslavement and other things that we as black men have gone to. And to have white women come and say, well, we want you to be on the side of us.